Joining me now is Richard Goldberg, Senior Advisor for the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Richard, thank you very much for joining me, and hopefully you can remember names better than I do right now. That was just an absolute blank there. Your reaction to what happened in Tehran, the assassination?
Well, obviously a very bold move by the Israelis. 2 assassinations within just a few hours in 2 of the major capitals of the Iran-led terror axis. Obviously, Tehran being the first, Beirut being a second. A major strike against Hezbollah, one of its top terror leaders. And then obviously we talk about Ismail Haniyeh, the leader of Hamas. Obviously, people are trying to make him out to be some sort of a negotiator or a diplomat. He was a terrorist wearing a suit, the leader of the organization that carried out October 7th. A lot of Canadian blood on his hands and American blood on his hands. So a good thing for the world that these 2 people are off the face of the earth. And now we see what Iran does in response.
With that, what do you expect for a response from Iran on this? I mean, you said it was Israel. Israel has not said anything yet, but does it point? Do enough things point to Israel as being behind this?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see the Israelis take credit for this. They typically do not take credit in any way, at least for a long time, for operations conducted inside of Iran. It's just been their practice when there's a Mossad operation involved. You saw that with the head of the nuclear program, their nuclear weapons godfather, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, back in 2020. They definitely avoided taking credit for that assassination that came out a little bit while later in the New York Times through leaks. So I don't expect we'll see that. But all signs do point that this was likely an Israeli strike, target of opportunity given the inauguration of the new Iranian president, and probably assets on the ground saying, okay, all these terror leaders are here, a leader of Hamas, a leader of other organizations, the IRGC. If these enemies who are in an ongoing 7-front war against Israel are vulnerable, we'll be in position to potentially take out one of their leaders, and I think that's what they did.
Okay, and what do you think Iran's response will be to this?
Well, the Iranians have 2 choices, obviously. One is they can allow their terror proxies to take the bulk of the response. We would have already expected Hezbollah to escalate in some way in response to their top operational commander being taken out. We've seen the Iraqi and Syria militias controlled by Iran also escalate at times, including last night, starting to attack U.S. bases before they were attacked. The Houthis in Yemen obviously can launch their own missiles and drones at Israel or at the Red Sea, or Iran can join the fight itself. And we've seen that happen once before after an Israeli strike in Damascus. You recall just a couple of months ago, they launched 120 ballistic missiles and then cruise missiles and drones at Israel as well. This was not targeting an Iranian. It happened on Iranian soil. So I think we'll have to see if they make a distinction there and how they respond. There will be a response, and I think what's important is that Israel doesn't look like it's afraid of that response. If they are going to go on offense, change the dynamic, try to regain leverage over Iran and its proxies, then they should stay on offense and not get under a desk, not act like a turtle and show any fear of what Iran will do in response.
And what does this do to the ceasefire talks?
Well, I think we should acknowledge that the ceasefire talks have not gone anywhere for months because of Hamas. Hamas has just decided to say no to everything at the table, and the Israelis have been forced to negotiate against themselves down to a point where there's nothing left to surrender. And so if Hamas is simply going to say no, you have to change the rules of the game. You have to find a different way to regain leverage. And so either Ismail Haniyeh and the rest of the Hamas folks in Qatar have no influence over the people in Gaza, or they have a negative influence and are blocking a deal. Either way, sending this kind of message that no one is safe, if you're based outside of Gaza, but you're part of this terrorist group, you're still on a kill list potentially. It's time to make a deal if you want one before it's your time to end up like Ismail Haniyeh, likely gives the Israelis more leverage than they had yesterday.
Okay, Richard, thank you very much for your insight. We appreciate it.
You bet.